Okay, so some of the suggestion in terms of service industry next. This is what we captured during the Pangkor dialogue. Yeah, Perak should be able to accommodate the demand from an increased population next. By focusing on service industry sector, where many new rich come for service industry, utilize the strength of available resources to attract investors and tourists. Strength of resources such as friendly people, peaceful place, historical, and so on and so forth. We have uniqueness there. And there's another recommendation we are considering is that try to target subculture space, because the speaker was talking about subculture, because subculture can also drive growth as seen in Japan. And I think that's the end. We open opportunity for yes, there's so many questions. I think I need Dr. Amin and Dr. to help. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Abdul Aziz Saeed. Would you mind clarifying more about the medical tourism? Because we went to a Sunway property, and they spoke about how building the hospitals to invite medical tourism, and alluding to how Thailand has granted
Indonesia, mostly from Indonesia, and that is why states like Malacca, very close to the Riau province, and Penang to the northern Sumatra, but then the spillover, you realize that there's demand is ever increasing as people move into become a middle class. And currently we have several, I think 2 or 3 hospitals here. That is a branch of hospital from Kuala Lumpur itself. They have the experience because they operate in those locations. They have the experience, they have the capacity, and we have medical people of international quality that's already here. And in terms of medical personnel, it's not that difficult to attract to come because it's quite close to Kuala Lumpur. However, there was not previously no strategic focus to really go deeper into health tourism. But realizing its potential and realizing the importance of service industry, this certainly will be effort by the government to make sure that this is become important, especially with our move to get say retirement village for Japanese. They will need the support services related to geriatric and things like that. Anything to add?
If I can add, actually what propel the prospect for I believe what will propel the prospect for health tourism, particularly in this state, are 3 things. Number 1 is actually expertise, because way back in the 80s, the government have done the right education policies, basically sending students overseas to take up medicine, and a lot of them went to the UK and became professionals. Cardiologists, anesthesists and everything. So, and when they came back, after they've worked after they served the government, many of them went into private practice. That's why you see quite a number of private medical practice here. And even in this state of Perak, we have about 5 private medical, establishments, with some of the renowned doctors are based here. One of them is a heart specialist cardiologist. He's one of the best. He was actually the cardiologist for the former Premier Mahathir. He's based here, Dr. Hasra. Another one joined politics and became state exco, which is Dr. Ma, and cardiologist. So we have quite a number of those. And the government also has set up in the past many nursing colleges. So we've got good doctors and a lot of good nurses, and a lot of nurses actually work in the Middle East. They work in the Saudi, in Kuwait, and many other countries. So, and when they came back, they are very experienced, and this is also another strength that we have. Apart from that, the cost of health, of surgery and everything is much lower here. That's why if you compare with even Indonesians actually fly down here to have their surgeries and and medical checkup. And the third thing, apart from we also have quite a number of alternative medicine being practiced. I'm sure you were in Banjaran yesterday and you've seen how they run the spa. They've got Ayurvedics, and we got a lot of those expertise here. And the government is doing a lot to basically take this alternative medicine to the mainstream, because in the past there have not been proper regulations. So the herbal preparations and everything would need to be certified and everything. So many development has taken in the past. So today we've got options with the best doctors, cheaper price of doing it, and of course an alternative medicine to offer. So I think this is something that will help the health tourism moving forward. And for recuperation, we have some of the best beaches. We have the oldest rainforest, and blah blah blah. So I think we've got the right ingredients to make it happen.
I think I may add on the next few years there will be surplus of doctors as well as nurses, because we produce so many. There's so many medical colleges. There will definitely be a surplus, and we can accommodate an increased demand from international parties for medical services here. I'm seeing lots of hands.
About immigration policies, you said that state of Perak is trying to attract retirees from Japan, and I'm wondering if the state has any influence over immigration policies that will allow those Japanese people to settle here, or if it's more top-down where the state is targeting the Japanese population because the Japanese can settle here without any sort of immigration issues.
I think we already have MM2H, yeah? MM2H?
Malaysia, my second home.
Malaysia, my second home. So it's already easier.
And that's
The
silver hair program.
the silver hair program. So there's already a program installed in the system. It's not under the state jurisdiction, but it's already there. It's how you capitalize on especially if you come from those countries. And seeing the demands, and you see it's not just the states in Borneo that receive plane loads of Japanese golfers. They actually fly in just to play golf. But seeing by ourselves on the ground, the number of people that are actually taking up MM2H program, as well as our own neighborhood where we see a lot of Japanese. So I think it's already very much simpler for people to settle here, and I think it's very attractive for them. It's whether we have the right ingredients to support their expectation. Dato', you want to add? No. All right. So good. Yes.
Hi, I just had a follow-up question on the happiness index that seems to be used as a basis for some of the promotion of tourism, but it was surprising to me that a place like Saudi Arabia was also on the most happy list, because I think that really depends on who you ask. So I was just wondering if you know any more about the metrics that were used.
Well, I think there were a lot of indexes when the researcher was trying to present. I was surprised also to see Saudi Arabia. But perhaps they ask people that go to those places and how in that sense. But I don't know how it relates. But most important from here is that
religious visits.
Yeah, it's a religious visit. Perhaps that's why. But what he was trying to stress is that you look at these states at the equator. They say they share the same weather, and look at number of tourist arrival, and these are the three most the three places where most people arrive, and they start to look at what are the indexes that is related to these three places. You know, it's not specifically they go to all this and say they all have the same kind of happy index, but that's the kind of methodology. We can dispute that, of course. But he chose these three also because of similarities, a lot of similarity in terms of our, not just weather, in terms of you know, flora, fauna, and all these other offering. So he thought that it's going to be similar. So, but when you look at differences, those two are very strong in the other industry. You know, so that could be why people go there. But what makes people come here? And so then he arrived at that perhaps you are genuinely happy. You know, so I don't know. This require for the study. I'll go to the back first. Yes.
Thank you for your time. My name is Francesca School, and in the past few days we've heard a lot about Malaysia's strategy for growth and some of the innovative growth policies the government is pursuing, and we've seen kind of the frenetic pace of growth in all the construction around us. But I'm curious to understand a little more about how you reconcile this quick growth with social and civil liberties for the whole population, and also freedom of speech.
Okay, a different kind of ingredients. That is why at the top of the purpose of those blueprints is looking at the so-called quality. Yeah, quality. What do you call it? Quality opportunity for people. I believe there's also opportunity for people to voice, to have freedom, to believe, to be a meaningful member of a society. And on top of that, we don't want people to live in a rich state but being poor. So we say people have to have a good quality income, and then we don't want to have an advanced state but where you have destroyed your forest, where it's no longer nice to live. That's why one another quality that we stress is on quality living. Now, specifically for the state, if I can answer that right, is that we try to be as inclusive as possible in its program. For example, previously the government of the day tend to exclude the opposition members in their committee of program, for example. But under Datuk Zamri as a chief minister, he has devised ways on how to get members of different political parties, different people with different background, to be together in developing programs or in handling issues that is important for the state. And I think, in fact, in our PIDD, I say again PIDD, our main theme was in terms of being inclusive. So we are a long way to go with respect of perhaps the exact question that you asked, but we are moving to it, making sure that everyone will not be left behind when we develop our strategy for growth. Dr. Zahid, you want to add? I hope you can, you know. Yeah, probably politician can answer that.
Actually, if I may add, there are two things. The one, social equity, and the other thing is that about freedom of speech. You know, for a country like Malaysia, we are not doing that bad. I dare say that if you look at the composition of the people, the population of the country, I will speak to my friends and to the people saying that it is not easy to manage a country like Malaysia. You know, we are for different. We have various races here. We have with multi-religious, multi-racial, and to achieve what we have achieved so far, and the most important thing that we have achieved so far is peace and harmony that we have achieved for our 50 plus years of independence. It's not something that is it's not something that for other countries of similar characteristics to have reach this far. If you look at other countries, we don't have to go far to Europe or to Africa or even to our neighbors in Southeast Asia, you can see that apart from we did have some racial problems, especially in 1969, but we are on top of that in general. We are not doing that bad. Okay, so this we have to look in the context of our history. In the context of the history, we used to be colonized by the British, and during the colonial days, there was this divide and rule policy, where the Malays, in general, the Malays, they will live in the kampungs, in the villages. The Chinese mostly will be living in the town area, and the Indians will be living in the estates. So because of that, and during the experience of the Japanese occupation, and also the experience of the pre and post-independence, especially during the communist insurgency, they have developed feelings between the various races and communities. But the leaders of the country, especially the founding fathers of the country, they have managed to forge the unity between the various races. Of course, we have to have some social policies or economic policies or national policies that help to facilitate, to forge the feeling of unity between these various communities. And eventually, I hope, within our lifetime, especially with these days of globalization and further development of the country, we will be able to achieve as what the dream of the Prime Minister, to achieve one Malaysia, where all people will stand tall and all members of the community will be able to, to be able to get an open opportunity, equal opportunities for all. But this is easier said than done because of the realities on the ground. One of the things that is very interesting for a politician like me, especially at the state level, compared to the federal level, because people who live in the state, at the state level, we are closer to the people on the ground, to the real people on the ground. For instance, like myself, even though I'm an EXCO member, or the state minister, but I'm also a member of the state assembly for Kemunting, and many people would immediately, I spoke to the British High Commissioner about being from Kemunting, and immediately remember, oh, this is where the Camp for Internal Security Act was. I remember a few years ago there was an article in the newspaper saying that the Guantanamo Bay of Malaysia in Kemunting. But and normally when we go down to our constituency and we deal with real people, all people of various races and various backgrounds, they have the same problem. And it is us, especially at the policy makers and state level, that we have to try to implement policies which are passed either at the national level or at the state level, so that they will have good impact to the people. One of the things that we try to get to the people is that through the education policies, where all will get fair and equal opportunities in terms of education and also in terms of social welfare. That's one thing. Number two is that about the freedom of speech. If you want to talk about it, I think it will take one whole day and one whole series of dialogues to get through that. Another thing is the freedom of speech. I think, especially in this present day of internet, the days where there's censorship, there's news blockage or whatever, is something of the past. I can still remember when I was a young student in UK, in Britain, when I just came back, full of idealism and all that. At that particular time, our only access to information was through the newspaper, print media, and it was at that time from not only Malaysia, many governments of the world. It was easier to censor news and also to be economical on many data and information. But nowadays, in the age of internet, in days of information technology, this is no longer true. If you look at the freedom of speech that we have in Malaysia, you can almost say anything. So sometimes people who say things, they say without, can become very irresponsible, especially in a multi-religious and multicultural country, and to the extent of hurting the feelings of others. And I don't think this is what we want for in this country. So it has to come with a balance. This freedom of speech must also come with responsibility.
Perhaps that's just now was a view from politician. It's a view as a citizen. Generally, Malaysians are moderates. About 80 to 90% actually would want to continue to be that way because we grow up together. We don't think about other races and religion when we play sports together when we're small. And I believe that's where we should continue to go because, of course, there will. As the world moves towards a globalized world, the access to information, we live in digital age. Freedom of speech is not something that we can stop. But most importantly, as Malaysians, we reject extremisms. We do not want any particular group with extreme views of other races or religion. And what happened, and we know what's happening in France and everything. And this is not something which we like and not something that we would promote. And general Malaysians are moderates, and we would like to keep it that way, with due respect to other cultures, races, and religions.
Okay, I see a few more hands. She already have the microphone. I'll come back to you after this. Yeah, all right. She's quick.
Hi, my name is Alana Hughes, and I'm also a dual degree between MIT pursuing my MBA and HCAS pursuing my MBA. And so I'm also someone who is very interested in how the private, social, and public sectors all work together. And so my question is pretty upward periscope in nature, but taking a step back, given that we just got to Perak yesterday, could you walk us through the different players in the economic development ecosystem? Has this been something traditionally pursued by business, and if so, what has been the role of corporates versus small and medium enterprises? What have been the state policies in the past, and what will they be moving forward, especially given your recommendations? And then one thing that I haven't heard as much of in the dialogue is the role of the third sector, so nonprofit, social enterprise. How do they fit into this picture? So if you could give us an overview really quickly, I think that'd be really helpful.
Wow, that's
it's a big question.
SMEs, plays a very, very crucial role. But of course, besides that, we have big industry players. But if you look at government support system, there's a lot that is poured into helping SMEs because they're the most that employ most number of people and things like that. And I think Perak is in a similar situation, except that when we get big investment like Vale and a few others that can really move the states, that's definitely a bonus for the state. As we move on, we will continue to make the state attractive because of low cost. At the moment, it's low cost. Land is still, because land is under jurisdiction of the state. So land is still very cheap, labor is also cheap, living is also much cheaper than other places. So there could be some attraction there. As far as benefits of coming here, I think Malaysia has been very generous. It has a very generous packet that is offered to investors to invest in Malaysia. Notwithstanding, Perak is the same also. I think both Dato' can deliberate after this on those points. We also engage very strongly with the NGOs. We have had several rounds of conferences. Try to highlight NGOs as a third pillar of society, and they've come forward really very, very well. And now we are in the process of creating what we call as this so-called Aman Jaya ambassador. That's our own version of volunteers, because we want to see that the younger generation, younger people, care as much as the third, the NGOs, as to making this place a place a good place for everybody. So we've just launched it, but we didn't manage to capture their strength during the recent flood. Yeah, but certainly, as we can see, now people are responding very well with social media. Never in Malaysia history, when you have natural calamities, people are responding the way they respond this time around. Everyone is doing something to ease the burden of the victims of the calamities. And as it's gaining more strong, for the state at least, we have a state exco that is fully in charge of NGOs and volunteers. And I think that not many states are having that. Besides, we already have firmly in our structure various mainstream youth group like Belia Part B and many other groups that's already there. It's just that we are seeing the spirits of contributing, some of the spirit of contributing the way that we had, for example, the so-called gotong royong. It's a concept very much true for the Malays and the Malay archipelago. Gotong royong, that spirit is slowly losing. We're slowly losing. So we want to bring it back so that people understand that by giving, you only enrich yourself more.
Well, we're the first state to form civil society at the helm of the state. The first thing he did was, after establishing the think tank, the next thing was to form a civil society council. And at that time, Perak, we have about 14,000 NGOs. You know, we have about 40. We are considered a small state with many NGOs. 14,000, but only about 2,000 or so which are very active. And the civil society council has been formed. We have, as Dr. Mazalan said, various engagement. For the past 3 budgets, when the state tabled the budget, they have allocation for the NGOs. And that's how we basically recognize them and basically bring them together in many of the state programs. And there is even a state minister in charge of that. So they meet regularly. So this is how we engage the civil society.
All right, sir. You've been waiting here.
Yes, fine. It should be the sector to promote economic growth of the region. In my opinion, the recommendation is still a bit high level, especially because Malaysia sectors, as you mentioned. So my question is, can you be more specific about what's your opinion about the current strategy of tourism in the country? I was checking some numbers, and the revenues of tourism in Malaysia are still lower as percentage of the GDP than Thailand or Vietnam or Cambodia. So what do you think about the current strategy of Malaysia? Should they rebrand the name of the tourism sector, create a new brand for the tourism sector, or focus on a specific segment of society, or focus on a specific ecotourism or tourism in cities? So you mentioned before tourism for healthcare services, but tourism is more than that. Can you be more specific on what's the recommendations of your think tank?
Okay, you know what? To understand tourist behaviors and so on and so forth. But certainly, you see, Malaysia is surrounded by 3 most populous nations in the world: China, India, and Indonesia. You know, even if you don't do anything, these people, if they were to grow into middle income, they would travel anyway. That's what we understood from our study. And we have looked how the influx, minus the fact that we have problem with MH. So, so tourists from China has gone tremendously. But then again, we also see problematic in terms of our hotels. They're very cheap, and then and also in terms of attractions, the way we market, in the way we brand it. It probably was okay for the last decade also, but certainly need a new breath of life to it. But it certainly is very, very important sector still. As I said, because you are naturally surrounded by these three most populous nations, and it so happened that Malaysia comprises of main races from these three groups. So we understand that, you know. There was also, of course, the suggestion that we should focus on high-end people from Russia, from Europe, you know. But we also understand that people travel would make their first travel for one flight without, what do you call it, without stopping, without layover, without transit. You know, if you want to go to a place, if you have to transit here first, and then you decide, oh, now. So these three nations within that 5-hour psychological travel time. So I think if we focus our brand right, and again, if you can really make a good offering for middle class and upper in terms of what we have, certainly, and as people move towards more nature-based, forest, green travel, we still have those elements strongly present in our system, and that's what we should be focusing on. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, together after New York and London, Kuala Lumpur is number 3.
Yeah, they have that, but in terms of the value, and was asking about, you know, in terms of the income that we get, it's a lot lower than Thailand.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I mean, coincidentally, I was with the tourism minister over the weekend. We are good destinations for ecotourism. I think upcoming health tourism and even sports tourism. And that's what I share about campaign.